Hello, I am Ran Lahav, talking to you from the United States, where I live and work. I am a philosophical practitioner, and I also teach philosophy and psychology in a nearby university. I've been very active in the philosophical practice movement around the world for over 30 years. And in the first half of this period, I was especially interested in philosophical counseling. In other words, one-on-one, a philosophical counselor talking with a client about their personal problems. But in the past 10 or 15 years, more or less, I started to become more interested in philosophical group activity, in philosophical groups that would work towards self-development and self-transformation, not to talk about specific personal problems, but about the person as a whole. And the result was an approach that we now call deep philosophy. In other words, doing philosophy from our depth, from our inner depth. So today I would like to say a few words to you about deep philosophy and to introduce the idea to you. Those who are interested in more can read my books, or you are invited to join our activity online. Come and try. So anyway, what is deep philosophy? In one sense, deep philosophy is a group. It's a name of a group. It's us. We are several dozens of people around the world. We meet once or twice a week and we contemplate together on philosophical ideas online and sometimes also in retreats, often in Europe or elsewhere. This is the group. But what does the group do? What is, in other words, deep philosophy? Well, this is a complex question, but let me try to summarize the answer in a few words. First, what is the goal of deep philosophy? Well, the goal is to expand ourselves, to deepen ourselves, to be in touch with the basic fundamental aspects of reality, to have an appreciation of the fullness of life, of the foundation of life, and to be in touch with it, to connect to this reality. Well, these are big words, but how do you get there? What exactly do we do in order to approach this big goal? Well, if I had to summarize what we do in our deep philosophy groups, I would say one central sentence, which contains the basic elements of deep philosophy. What do we do in deep philosophy? Well, in deep philosophy, we contemplate from our inner depth on basic life issues or fundamental aspects of life, in togetherness with each other and with the voice of past philosophers. Yeah, let me repeat it because it contains everything that we do. In deep philosophy, we contemplate from our inner depth, not from here, but from here. We think from here on basic life issues or fundamental issues of reality, of life. In other words, on philosophical issues. And we do so in togetherness with our companions in the group and in togetherness with the philosophical voice of the philosophers of the past. So let's look at those three elements more carefully. First of all, what does it mean to contemplate? Contemplation is not something new. You can find contemplation throughout the history of philosophy in various philosophical and spiritual groups. To contemplate means to think not from our intellect, but from a deeper dimension within us. Usually we think in a very intellectual way. We describe, we analyze, we express opinions, we agree, we disagree, we employ our thinking capacity. But this is a very remote way of looking at life. I can theorize about the world, and yet there is a distance between me and the world. This kind of thinking from my head, this thinking about, does not change me. So for this reason, we have developed a kind of text contemplation, a contemplation in a text, where we think from an inner listening, from a center of our being. And this is called contemplation, and since we usually use text, we call it text contemplation. So this is the first element. The second element is the deep philosophical issues that we contemplate about. What are philosophical issues? Well, fundamental issues of life, of reality. For example, what is freedom? What is the self? What is self? What is the meaning of life? What does it mean to love? What is the essence of love or true love? And so on. So this is a topic of our contemplation. We want to think about those very, very fundamental issues. But it's very difficult, really impossible to think deeply about those big issues by ourselves, starting from zero. Obviously, we want to relate to what people in the past, what wise people in the past said. This doesn't mean that we agree with them, but it means that they can enrich our thinking. And for this reason, we always relate to some selected philosopher of the past. We never agree or disagree with that philosopher. That's not the point. The point is that the thinking of previous philosophers can enrich us. And when we look at several different views, we can have a better appreciation for the reality that we want to contemplate on and that we want to connect to. So this is the second element, the contemplation on basic life issues or basic aspects of reality. The third element is the togetherness. And this means that when we interact with our group members, and also when we interact with the voice of the text that we use, right? We have a text that we use. This means that we do not talk about, we do not argue, we do not agree or disagree. Rather, we are together, we are shoulder to shoulder, we resonate with the voice of our companions and the voices of previous philosophers. This is a little bit like in an orchestra or a concert, where the different musical instruments do not talk about each other. It's not that the flute says to the cello, excuse me, cello, I don't agree with you. Rather, instead, we have those different voices, those different instruments playing together and responding to each other. They resonate with each other, so to speak, and together they create the melody, the music. And in the same way, our purpose is not to agree or disagree or to give comments to each other or to the text, but rather we sing together, so to speak. We create a philosophical melody together, a philosophical music together of many voices. And together we then reach a fuller, richer kind of philosophical music, because each one of us, of course, takes responds in different ways, resonates in different ways, and the result is a kind of polyphony of voices. But now if you think about it, this is not easy to do, because our mind has this automatic pilot that makes us think in ordinary patterns. We always want to express opinions and to agree and to disagree and to analyze and to talk about, not from within, not with inner listening, not by contemplation, but to talk about, to discuss. That's what we are good at. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not good for contemplation. And for this reason, we have tools or exercises that help us to push aside the automatic patterns of our mind, the intellectual thinking. For example, we may have an exercise where we take a specific sentence and we repeat it again and again and again. Each member repeats it and we repeat it again and again like a mantra. And when this happens, then your mind starts to savor, to taste the images and the words and the new meanings, and suddenly the sentence is much richer than usual. Or to give another example, we have a procedure that is called precious speaking. In precious speaking, we speak by choosing the words very carefully, as if we are speaking poetry. Every word is precious. And when you speak poetically, or when you try to think about each word and choose it carefully, the result is that your mind is focused and attentive to the color of the words, the meaning of what you're saying in a much deeper way. So all this, it creates a kind of flow during the session of the 60 or 70 or 80 minutes where we resonate together with the text. And of course, we need a conductor, like in music, a conductor. This is the facilitator, who is an experienced participant and may change from session to session. And that person, he or she, leads the group, that is usually about 8, 10, 15 people, leads the group through this kind of contemplative journey. The result is that something happens inside us. It's not new information necessarily. It's not, oh, interesting, this philosopher says this and this philosopher says that. But rather by listening to the many voices of philosophy, to the many voices of reality that spoke through deep thinkers, and that still speaks in us too, by listening to this and responding to these voices of reality, we expand ourselves. We learn to appreciate the meaningfulness, the realness of our world. And this is a kind of expansion, a kind of going deep, a kind of moving towards wisdom. So this is very briefly what deep philosophy is. And again, if you're interested to learn more about it, I invite you to go online and look for our website. You'd be more than welcome to join us. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you online.